Hey, what's going on, Jam fam? So today we're going to be talking about hypercharges. Now, if you live on a rock and you don't know what a hypercharge is, it's the newest feature that's added to a game. Now, hypercharges currently give you some kind of stat buff, and they modify your super in some way. So basically, Bull gets a shield, Jackie's now applies a slow, and Shelly's just gets bigger. So today, I want to try to go over what that hypercharge would be for every brawler that doesn't currently have one. Now, obviously, we only have 6 in the game, so there's a lot of brawlers to go through. And when I made these hypercharges, I tried to do 2 things. I tried to avoid just the super getting bigger, because we already have 3 of those, and that's the most boring type of hypercharge we already have. And I also wanted to avoid what brawlers already have in their kits. So if a brawler already gets a shield, or a slow, or a stun, I tried not to make their hypercharge do that as well. All right, so like I said, we got a lot of brawlers to get through, so let's just get started. All right, so let's kick things off with Barley. I think Barley's super should apply a slow when he's hypercharged. I think it would be a huge benefit to him and would make his super insanely valuable. Brock's another really easy one. The rockets from his super should just apply incendiary to the area. That would give him both area of control and damage over time on his super. Those are both really good benefits for him. All right, so for Poco, I think that his super should give himself and his teammates an attack buff. It just makes him a much better support. He's already a healer. Might as well give him some kind of buff as well. For Rosa, I think that if she's doing damage while her shield's up, she should get bonus time with her shield active. Maybe something like 2 or 3 seconds at most. Not too much, but just a little bit. Primo was a little difficult, and I don't love this idea, but the best thing I could come up with was giving his super a stun. And then there's Nita. Now, Nita is one that I had a very hard time with. It's very hard to not make the bear overpowered because it already has so many things in its kit. It's already got a shield. It's already got hyper bear. So what more do you give it? So the only thing I could really come up with was giving it a very small speed buff. That way it's a little bit better at chasing people down. But even then, if you give it too much of a speed buff, it's going to be overpowered. So I don't love this idea either, but it's the best thing I could come up with. All right, next up, Dynamite. I think that his super should apply a burn, even though it already does a ton of damage. Giving it a little damage over time basically guarantees a kill every time. For Tick, I think that when his head is supercharged, it shouldn't be able to be slowed or stunned. For 8-Bit, he's already got a bunch of benefits from having his booster down. You can get a speed buff, you can get a damage buff. So the only thing I could really come up with for 8-Bit was when he's in his turret area and not shooting, he instantly heals. So something like a Pam turret, basically. For Daryl, when he's hypercharged and he rolls, at the end of the roll, it should cause a big explosion that deals massive amounts of damage. Penny's pretty easy. You either up the rate of fire for the turret or make the cannonballs a little bit bigger. Carl's one of my favorites. I think that when he's spinning, it should suck people in, kind of like an anti-Gale gadget. For Gus, I think that if you give somebody a shield while he's hypercharged, if that person deals damage, then they can heal the shield up a little bit. Now, for super rares, there are 2 brawlers that really stump me. One's going to be Jessie, the other one's going to be Rico. I don't love either one of these ideas I made for them, but I couldn't really think of anything. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Now, for Jessie, I came up with her being near her turret and getting some kind of big damage buff, but that seems a little boring, and it's also very reliant on keeping your turret up as much as possible, which people tend to focus fire, so I don't know if that's the best benefit right there. And then for Rico, it's very hard for me to determine what should be done with him because he already has a heal in his kit. He already has some kind of movement speed buff. He can give himself a damage buff by bouncing his shots. So it's like, what do you do with Rico? Because he already has a lot of self-sustain in his kit. Best thing I could come up with for Rico is that when you hit somebody with your super, they also spawn bouncy balls off of them. But that seems really broken, especially if you're running his bouncy star power, because it's just going to make like balls go flying everywhere, and it's kind of annoying. Like I said, I don't love either one of those ideas. Let me know what you think down in the comments. All right, let's move on to the epic brawlers. First thing, we got Bo. Obviously, the easiest thing is to make his mines detonate a lot faster. For Ems, honestly, I think the best thing is just to give her a movement speed buff when her super is active. Stu's going to be pretty straightforward. Obviously, they're just going to re-add the knockback onto his super that he had at release. Edgar's going to get the same treatment as Primo. When he lands on somebody, it's going to stun them. For Pam's healing pad, they should either make it bigger or give some kind of damage buff or a shield when you're near it. For Piper, I think they should add stuns to the bombs. That way, when you jump away and hit somebody with the bombs, you can just auto-aim them down. For Hank, his next bubble will be fully charged after using his super. For Bonnie, they could give her a shield when she lands or make it stun people just like I suggested with Edgar and Primo. Groms is pretty easy. Just make it break more walls. It's annoying when it only breaks 1 piece of wall. Make it break like 3 pieces of wall or something. Bee's another one that's kind of tough, but I think that her super should add a poison effect because a lot of people are allergic to bees. For Griff, you either make him throw more cards or add a damage over time to the card, so it's like a bleed effect. For Nani, when she throws out Peep and she's hypercharged, if you hit somebody with it, it should just burn them. It just makes sense that explosions cause fires. And just like with the super rares, I had 2 brawlers that stumped me in the epic category. Those are going to be Frank and BB. BB, I have no good ideas for because she already has a slow in her kit. She already has a knockback. She has shield. She has speed. What do you do with BB when you throw out her bubble? Best I could come up with for BB is that her bubble now leaves a slowing trail behind it, but that could be really overpowered because it travels a long distance and there's going to be a lot of slowing all over the map. So I don't know if I love that idea personally. And then for Frank, again, I don't love this idea, but what if they gave him a damage buff for every enemy he hit with his super? So then if you hit one person, you get a 10% damage buff. If you get a whole team, you get 30% or something like that. I think that would be a nice benefit benefit for him. All right, for Mythic Brawlers, let's start out with my favorite Terra. What if her super leaves a black hole? It makes it so people can't move away for a certain number of seconds. For Gene, I think he should get a damage buff after landing a successful pull. For Mortis, you could be really boring and just make his super a little bit wider, or you could give it like a damage over time effect when it lands on an enemy. For Max, her super is already a support super, so what if it either healed people or gave them a damage buff when you used it on them? Mr. Piece is obvious, just make it spawn porters a little bit quicker. All right, so Sprouts was a little bit tricky, but I think I came up with a really good hypercharge idea for him. What if your teammates could shoot through your wall? I think that would be a huge benefit for Sprout and his teammates. All right, for Byron, just make it so that his super gives overtime effects, so he heals over time and does damage over time with his super. All right, for Squeak, just either give him more little bombs on his super or make it so the big bomb does big damage, kind of like a dynamite super. For Gray, whenever a teammate uses his teleporter, they gain a shield. For Willow, she can't be hit while she's mind controlling an enemy. Think something like her dive gadget. And then for Doug, just make it so that his Glizzy gives a damage buff as well as a revive. All right, time for legendary brawlers. For Leon, I think that he shouldn't be revealed when he's shot or near somebody, kind of like how he was on global release. For Sandy, I think that when enemies are in the sandstorm, they are blind. And what I mean by a blind is it won't show your aiming outline when you go to aim at somebody. You can still shoot in that direction, but it just won't show you where you're shooting. For Amber, her oil should act as kind of like a Lou super where people are very slick and they can't really move well when they step on the oil. For Meg, I think when she whacks people with that stick, it should stun them. Chester's a bit of a tough one because his supers are so random to begin with, but I think that they should double down on that and allow him to use 2 supers at once, kind of like the glitch that was going on with him at the beginning of this season. I think it would be fun if you threw out a stun and then also hit people with like the spray or whatever, or you know, you popped a heal when you threw out a bomb. I think like some combo like that would be a lot of fun for him to use when he's hypercharged. And then there's Crow, and I literally have no idea what they can do with Crow because he already has so many things built into his kit that it's hard to add more to it. Like, if you look at it, Crow already has damage over time on his attacks. He has a slow as a gadget. He's got a shield as a gadget. Even one of his star powers debuffs enemies so they do less damage. What more can you add to Crow to make him better, to make the hypercharge worth buying? Again, I still have no idea what they can do with Crow because, like I said, he already has pretty much everything built into his kit somewhere, so it's hard to want to double down on things without making other parts of his kit obsolete. So let me know what you think about Crow down in the comments. From Crow to Chromatic, let's talk about Gale. I think they should just return the speed buff from his super. If you don't know, when Gale was released, he had a speed buff as a star power. I think they should bring that back for when he's hypercharged. For Surge, he should either get a damage buff depending on his upgrade level, or just like Primo and Edgar, give him a stun when he lands on people. Belle's pretty easy. Marked brawlers are just gonna get a reload speed debuff. And I know technically her grounded star power kinda does that, but nobody runs that and they need to replace that star power, so just move it onto her hypercharge and replace that star power. For Colonel Ruffs, just make it so the dog treat heals people when they pick it up and he's hypercharged. Lou doesn't need a hypercharge, move on. Now Colette's gonna be a little weird. I think that they should give some kind of new debuff, kind of like Charm from Pokemon, where it gives you a 50% chance to not take any damage from a brawler after being hit by her super. I think that would be a very interesting mechanic, and I would like to see something like that in the game, but it would be a little random and it'd be very annoying for like competitive players, so let me know what you think about that. For Ash, just give his rats more HP, that's pretty obvious. For Buzz, they could do what I suggested with Frank and give him a damage buff for more people that he stuns. For Lola, her ego now slows people when she's hypercharged. Fang can get a damage buff based on how far he actually dashes with his super. Eve, you can give her the same treatment as Ash, just make it so that her spawnables have more HP. Janet's pretty easy, we either make her drop more bombs or make the bombs bigger so she lands them more often. For Otis, it's probably going to be overpowered, but make it so that people lose ammo while they're also silenced. For RT, give him a shield after he hits somebody when he's stuck in his Jackie form. Maisie literally will just drop her super a little bit faster. For Cordelius, when he's in the Shadow Realm, he either gets a damage buff or it slows down the enemy. For Buster, you either make the shield a lot wider or you just make it last a lot longer. And then we got 2 more chromatics left. I think that Sam, when he's hypercharged and he has his knuckles in his hands, he should get a massive damage buff. And when he doesn't have his knuckles, he should get a massive speed buff. This kind of doubles down on the way you play Sam. You either do massive damage or you're running to try to pick up your knuckles. So I think this is a good benefit for Sam when he's hypercharged. And then there's Mandy. And right now it's very hard to try to decide what they should do with Mandy for hypercharge because her kit is so gimmicky and it's hard to make things fit with her super. But I think the best thing I could come up with is that her super should break walls now instead of just flying through the map, because honestly, like, she's a sniper, she likes to have maps open, and this is kind of like the best thing I could think because she doesn't have a wall break in her kit, so that's the best thing I could come up with. And there we have it. There's a hypercharge idea for pretty much every brawler except for Crow, because Crow just has way too much going on for him. Again, I don't know if these are the most balanced ideas. I don't even know if they're the most fun ideas, but they're just what I came up with just by trying to not double down on what characters already have in their kits and trying to just avoid make the super bigger, because I think that's the most boring buff that they could give a brawler. Let me know what you thought down in the comments. If you like any of my ideas, let me know. If you hate any of my ideas, let me know. If you have any of your own, let me know as well. Maybe I'll highlight some of your guys' ideas in a future video. But that's going to do it for this one. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.